My name is Michael Leibowitz, and I reside in Denver.
I'll need a name and address.
601 West 11,
Thank you.
Denver. Thank you for speaking of this issue. This is not just new to the city of Commerce City, this is new to everybody. And the laws are gray, to say the least. But first I'd like to distinguish, I can't help but sit here as Mr. Benson, you speak of supply chains, and you said the words Colombia and South America, how do wholesalers get it? This is medical marijuana that we engineer ourselves. I represent a company and have worked in the medical marijuana industry as a licensed caretaker for many years. And just the first thing I'd like to do to the City Council, who probably has never thought of this with any other time in the last 6 months, this is not cocaine, this is not heroin, this is a drug that has proven medicinal purpose. Mr. Lewis, I'm sorry you don't understand that, but
You understand.
in my case, it's almost like someone's denying that the Holocaust ever happened to me. I take that very personally, as does the Board of Health in the United States recognizes for thousands upon thousands of
Okay,
patients.
just before we get into any kind of scuffle here.
I don't wish to do that, and I apologize.
Okay.
I do take that personally, just on
Okay, thank you.
I've seen the benefits, that's all I wanted to say. On July 20th, the Colorado Board of Health voted, as you're all aware, on the amount of caretakers, amount of patients one caretaker could have, and they voted not to limit that, and they also voted not to re-vote on that for about 2 years. I apologize when I spoke last week using the word warehouse, using the word wholesale, because that seems like it's had a certain connotation tonight that is not spelled out in any amendment or any section of any amendment. It's a word I've used that somehow is being used by everybody here. I'm a caretaker. That's all I am. I'm not a wholesale operation. If I grow for one patient or I have hundreds of patients, I'm a caretaker. I am a licensed caretaker under state law. So to me, wholesaling dispensaries, it's all still so gray, as we know, but it's no different than caretaking for one person as it is caretaking for thousands and thousands of patients. Checks and balances system, that was a great question too. It made me think about the economics and obviously the tax revenue you guys would like to see, and your inability to track it, I think, kind of is a result of the inability to understand it. As a patient, we are allowed to supply a certain amount, and that certain amount is sold for a certain amount. So we technically can't just grow and grow and grow and have some go out the back door, especially, and I wholeheartedly believe the state is going to really tighten the regulations. We would be able to track that, and you would be able to track all of our revenue by the amount of patients that we supply. So if we had 100 patients, you could say we had 300 plants, and that would produce a certain amount. Just something to think about. I know it's kind of something we're already started about. And in terms of one other issue I just want to address is security as well. The way it's zoned under this regulation, we're in industrial parks. I mean, we're not going to be in city centers. We're not going to be anywhere that this ordinance eliminates, in my mind, any retailer wanting to come in and actually set up business, because my patients aren't going to drive down to a warehouse district when they get off work at 6 o'clock at night and it's dark out. And that's scarier than buying it on the black market. The truth is, I think that by passing this regulation, Commerce City is effectively eliminating the retail business. And that's your decision to make, not mine. My concern, I guess, as a caretaker for multiple patients, my company actually works with dispensaries located throughout the state, none are in Commerce City. Our concern is, as I briefly said last week, is really anonymity. That's our goal. So I've read Ordinance 1770, and we follow explicitly with everything in Section 2. My one concern is Section 1, and having to get some sort of conditional use permit for it. And I've read the regulations as well. When I was here for a meeting with the Economic Committee and the Housing Committee, the development plan, and looking as to why a business would need a conditional use permit. Maybe you guys can help me understand it. If we're renting an existing structure, why we would need, to go through that process. Also, considering that we would be obviously following under the regulation of everything in section 2, and that's what's making it really difficult for us to do it like any business. It's a good time for us to get involved as quickly as possible. So those are my thoughts. Maybe.
Mr. Benson, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did, but first I'd like to hear the staff's answer to Mr. Lugo's question.
Why we can require a conditional use permit? Well, we regulate all kinds of businesses. I mean, that's the answer is all businesses are legal, but there are some businesses, because of the impact of the particular use, we require a showing that, and a finding by the Planning Commission that the proposed use in the proposed location is in harmony with that location, doesn't propose any, I can't even remember what all the criteria are, but conditional uses are for those permits are for those uses that we believe we can't say across the board, you're always going to be appropriate in a particular district. So it's going to require something more.
So my understanding, in case a state regulation changed, that there would need to be some sort of power that the city would have to stop the business. If there was a governor's mandate that we're changing our mind completely in the state of Colorado, we are banning marijuana. The city, obviously my business would have to be closed that second, no matter what. But so a secondary provision to that, if Commerce City, wants to exercise that type of right authority, is that?
We have the right of local land control. That's given to us through the state constitution. So anything within our boundaries, we can regulate as far as where it goes or if it goes, right? I mean, there are some uses that we can say, we don't think that's appropriate here in Commerce City, and we can prohibit it. Other uses we can say, yeah, we want them, but here's where they belong, really, in the grand scheme of things, right? You don't really want a car repair center, right, in the middle of, right next to your park, where there's neighborhood kids and those kinds of things, right?
But that's my point. Is that's the point of section 2 of the ordinance? Is that that's what it spells out? So
well, it does, but
it's kind of the same.
Well, it says here are this. You can't be within those, but even if you're outside of all of those areas, we still think it's such a special use that we're going to want to make sure it's still compatible, because there might be other things that we want to consider with that particular use, and we do it in other uses as well.
Well, I guess since this is a public hearing, my request tonight for City Council would be, if you do choose to vote on this ordinance, to see if we can get rid of section 1, thinking that section 2 does carry enough weight in terms of restriction.